Welcome back to our November edition, and joining me is Al Wakelin, author of Unforgiven Trespasses. Al, thanks for joining me.
Very welcome, Peter. It's my pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
What inspired you to write a fiction book?
I guess I've always had a love of writing. I've done poetry and short stories, and I guess COVID was timely. I started this actual project back in the fall of 2019, but it wasn't until the dark days of September 2020, in the throes of the COVID pandemic, that it just drew me in and actually was very therapeutic.
That's great. Al, I will tell you, it's the first fiction book that I've ever read. I read it cover to cover. I thought it was excellent. So tell us about how your previous background as an RCMP officer, you also worked in for a international company in their corporate security. How does it tie into your story?
Well, I'm influenced by the concept you should write what you know. And I've been very fortunate. I've had a very interesting career in life in policing and in the intelligence world and in the security management world as well. So, yeah, I drew upon certain aspects of that to create this novel.
And the novel includes both Perth County and Huron County. So how do you actually develop the story? Because it is a bit graphic, let's be frank. So how did you just develop the story from the beginning to where you're going to finish it off?
Well, there's the therapeutic part. I know I suffer post-traumatic stress syndrome. And one of the things you help you with that is journaling. And I'm not the diary sort of guy. Businessmen like yourself, Peter, certainly keep a certain diary of everyday business events, but I've never been that sort of person. So the novel was a good way to go, and I chose fiction because it allows me to have a voice, so I can be a little bit preachy, and without having the constraints of nonfiction or certain legal aspects of nonfiction, because you have to have your facts really, really straight and be very careful what you say. And I'm not saying there isn't certain regulatory around fiction as well, but certainly it gives you a little bit more poetic license. And so I guess some of those dark things in my life, some of the demons, good memories too in policing, but there are demons as well. And it lets me address some of those demons. And that's what I did in this book.
Now, you've also brought your own home into the book. So there is a bit of nonfiction with the fiction. So how did you wrestle with that? Because I think there's 5 characters that are real characters as well. So how did you blend all of that?
I love reality. So while I wasn't going to write a nonfiction book, I do like the feel of something. This could really happen. I mean, for instance, a fellow and his wife running a bed and breakfast in Stratford, and he just happens to be a former police officer, intelligence officer, and senior manager of security for a corporation, being that person. So it's well, that sounds like it couldn't be real. In fact, it is real. That's what we do. We run our little B&B in Stratford and at the cottage in Caledonia. And part of my motivation for the book, there's several motivations, but the concept of using Stratford was influenced by Louise Penny, who writes the Gamache series. She's written, I think she must be up to book 17 by now, but she created a place called Three Pines. I don't have that literary ability or imagination, but I know Stratford. I was gone for maybe 30 years, but I grew up here, always visited here, and of course we've lived here for the past decade. And so it's easy to write about, and I thought it was a way of marketing our city, B&Bs, the theater, the parks, and so that's what I did.
So when you're finished, you now have it published and you have a paper copy in your hand. Tell me about how you felt.
Well, and you've seen it, Peter. It's a great book, and the Richard Bain is the local publisher that published it. His Amanda Nolte was the designer. It looks really good. It feels good. I had it professionally edited. Kristen Hahn, who was identified to me by Bob Newlands that runs Fanfare Books, where the book is for sale, as well as the festival stores, and even here at the cottage in Caledonia. But it's a real good feeling. It's a satisfying feeling. And as you say, there's some kind of graphic pieces to it. But I did that deliberately because I was a first responder. And a first responder sees those things. I think for someone that suffers post-traumatic stress syndrome, I think it's important for the reader to have some of that flavor too.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on just writing such a phenomenal book.
Well, thank you, Peter. And I hope people enjoy crime mysteries will pick it up and enjoy the walk through Stratford and up to Bayfield and Goderich. And of course, it ends in Los Angeles, which is makes it a little bit more of an exciting ending.
We'll call that the Tri-Cities. Coming up
Yes.
next is Breen Bentley.